there everybody, I'm Mark Nunnekoven here with Trend Micro, and I want to give you an overview of the fundamentals of security in the AWS Cloud. Now that all starts with the goal of cybersecurity. Now forget all the formal definitions you've heard. I'm going to give you a simple holistic one, and it's this. The goal of cybersecurity is to make sure that whatever you built does what you want it to, and only that. That's it. It's as easy as that. Of course, there's a lot of challenges in the details, but this is our overall goal with cybersecurity, to make sure whatever you've built does what you want it to and only what you want it to. That all starts with something called the shared responsibility model. Roughly put, there's about 6 areas where there's daily responsibilities in operations and in security. And it starts with the physical aspects, with the infrastructure, with the virtualization, operating system, application, and data, right? So somebody needs to make sure that the data center has 4 secure walls, that it's got redundant power and uplinks to the internet, the virtualization is layer, you get it. There's areas here, each of these areas needs work every day. Now, immediately when you move into the AWS Cloud, half of that work is going to be delegated to AWS. You don't have to worry about the physical data centers, about the power, the heating, the cooling, the internet connections, or even the virtualization layer. AWS takes care of all of that. Where you take over is with the operating system, at least in services called infrastructure as a service. So a great example here is Amazon's EC2 service. You make an API request, you get back access to various instances. Now, whether they're running Windows or Linux, you're responsible for the security of the operating system. So if you wanted to, you could set the passwords for the admin accounts for those instances to be password. Now, here's a shocking pro tip. Don't ever do that. That's a horrible idea. But the point is, this is an area where it's fully under your control and your responsibility. So you could really do that if you wanted to. And again, don't ever do that. But as you move through this model and get to the SaaS level or abstract services, then you're responsible for less and less of the daily security and operations. So if we look at an abstract level service like Amazon S3, the simple storage service, here you simply select what data of yours you're going to put into an S3 bucket, and you set the permissions around the keys that you've put, the files you put in the bucket, and the bucket itself. So you have far less direct responsibility. And that's the advantage of this model, not just from a security perspective, but from a business perspective. The closer and the more you get into abstract level services, the more you can focus directly on your business. Now, I'm a security person through and through, so even though I don't have a tinfoil hat on right now, I do have one handy, so I don't just trust blindly. Now, again, AWS creates these services at a world-class level of security and operational efficiency, but you don't just have to take their word for it. They have a number of ways of verifying this, and the biggest way is through compliance frameworks. So if you go to aws.amazon.com/compliance, you'll see just a host of logos where they've achieved various frameworks, compliance with various frameworks like PCI, like HIPAA in the States, SOC 2, SOC 3, this kind of thing. And this is your verification as a user that they're holding up their end of the shared responsibility model. In fact, if you're in the AWS Management Console in the web browser, you can see AWS Artifact, which is a single web page that lets you click and download the audit evidence from each of these frameworks. Really powerful stuff, really simple way for you to verify that they're holding up their end of the bargain. Now, of course, all of these services, all these features, all this functionality, it's essentially like a big bin full of building blocks, and you can build whatever you want. There's been some amazing things built in the AWS Cloud. Now, the difference is, though, is that you can also build strong, resilient systems, or you can build some, let's say, interesting designs. To help you along, there's the Well-Architected Framework. This started as one white paper, and it has expanded to a series of white papers, a whole bunch of, this is my architecture videos, some approved architectures within the Architecture Center. There's a whole bunch of resources here to help you build better out of the gate. Now, this is built on the hard lessons learned from over a decade of AWS Pro services, also their pre and post sales engineer and their product teams. They've poured all the lessons they've learned into the Well-Architected Framework for you to learn to start building from a place of strength, right? Now, this is a whole series of choices. There's no one architecture that I can say, here's how you build a website. There are 5 pillars within the Well-Architected Framework, and it starts with operational excellence, with cost efficiency, reliability, performance optimization, and security. Now, none of these pillars stand on their own. They're all interconnected. And because of that, you need to make trade-offs in one to make gains in the other. It would be great if we could just have everything we wanted, but that's not how technology or the world works. So the well-architected framework gives you various guiding principles under each of these pillars to make a decision that fits your business and technical needs. And that's really, really powerful stuff. So let's dive a little bit deeper on the security pillar. So when you look at the security pillar, the overall concepts underneath it are pretty straightforward security concepts. Identity and access, controls that detect potential issues, infrastructure protection, data protection, as well as getting ready for incident response. There's nothing here that will surprise anybody who's done any security work. The key is the well-architected framework adapts these well-known and understood security concepts into the AWS Cloud because there's so much power there. You can change these concepts. You can move them forward into a more modern interpretation. And when you scratch below the surface of these areas, you start to see some key principles or threads kind of woven into all of them. And they're all really important, but I want to call out one very, very specific principle that I think is critical to modernizing your approach to security, and that's automating security best practices. Everything within the AWS Cloud can be treated as code. Infrastructure is code, your application is code, accessing your data programmatically. Your security should absolutely be the same way. And this is an area where security historically hasn't done a great job. We've been defending manually against automated attackers, and that just doesn't make any sense. When you move into the AWS Cloud, you have the opportunity to remove a lot of that security sort of grunt work or operational burden on your team by automating it, making sure that your security systems are as automated as your CI/CD pipeline. In fact, making sure that your security systems are part of that CI/CD pipeline. It's an extremely powerful concept. So those are the fundamentals of security in the AWS Cloud. There's a lot more to dig into here, but now you've got a good lay of the land and you can move forward planning out your security so that it's automated, woven into the fabric of your deployment, and really pushing the envelope forward so that you have a strong, resilient design in the AWS Cloud. Now get out there and build.